Ah, Smart Water, now in a sleek can.
This feels cool, literally.
Perfect for social gatherings and on the go.
Should I start wearing turtlenecks?
One sip at a time, friend. Smart Water cans, for those with a taste for taste. Get yours today.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to this weekly edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup for the week of May 26, 2025. This week brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, Richard Childress Racing, and the International Order of Teddy Roosevelt. Thank you all for your continued support of this program. This week's show, excited because it's a short one. You folks have been hanging in there weekly here with a very active legislative session in the states and on the Hill. So I bring you our lead story, Mountain Mobocracy, yet another anti-conservation ballot initiative proposed in Colorado. We bring you Barry Snell here momentarily. Parity on the horizon for North Carolina's recreational flounder anglers. Making a difference in the Mountain State. A look back at West Virginia's 2025 legislative session. And we're going to wrap it up with conservation funding, constitution amendments, and school curriculum. Iowa's legislative session comes to a close. We're looking back in Iowa as well. All that and much, much more. And I got to start with there is some gremlins in the internet, the interwebs, as we're recording this. So my apologies, but we're having to bring Barry. I know you all like to see Barry when we do the reels and the clips on the socials, but Barry is coming to us via telephone. Barry, welcome to the show. So we got some foolishness as it pertains to Colorado, as per typical. Getting back to your title here, the article. This time we're looking at a ballot initiative 82 that looks to more or less create another commission that would be independent of Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Give us the whole breakdown and what qualifications would these people have to contribute? And obviously, we know this to be obstructionist.
Yeah, I think the qualifications to serve on this this parallel commission would probably be political affiliation of some sort. I think having certain political opinions is probably what would earn a person a seat on this were it passed. You teed it up perfectly, Fred, when you said that this is a parallel commission to the current Wildlife Commission, which is under the wonderful Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Great bunch of people, very diligent in our space, and they are constantly under fire, as this ballot initiative would indicate. The goal of this is to create an independent commission. It would be completely outside of CPW's jurisdiction. CPW would have no control or say in anything that it does. The details of this parallel commission are very vague, which of course we can surmise is rather intentional. The proposal itself does not really get into a lot of detail over what it would do other than oversee the treatment of air quote here keystone species.
Mhm.
And then when the hearing was held, so there's a process in Colorado for these ballot initiatives. Unfortunately, it's not strenuous enough. It's very easy to do this, which is why you'd always hear about Colorado with these things. I mean, you could get drunk on a Saturday night and just decide that you're gonna do a ballot initiative in Colorado and have a fair shot at success. That's how easy it is.
Yeah.
But the process, there's many steps along the process. They're still very early in this, and they have to go through every ballot initiative has to go through a review by an organization within the Colorado government called the Legislative Council, Colorado Legislative Council. And the Leg Council is basically a group of attorneys and permanent staff within the Colorado legislature who are responsible for a multitude of things. They'll review bills, they'll write bills for the legislators. Um, every time there's a census every 10 years, they'll be the ones who redraw the district maps. So they do a whole bunch of things for the government. And one of the things here is managing and reviewing these ballot initiative proposals that people come up with. And there's so many of them in Colorado at this point. That's probably practically their full time job now. But so they went through the review process that they have to do, and the Ledge Council tore this proposal up. I've seen quite a few of these at this point in the last few years since I've been with CSF, and this is the most, I'll call it the most damning replies from Ledge Council that I've seen. It was filled with nothing but, frankly, criticisms. These just, I encourage everybody to follow the link because I linked to it in the article. The Ledge Council is like, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. It's just page after page of that. And so, getting back to the point here, during this review hearing, effectively is what it is that they had here recently, some more details about this parallel or shadow commission, whatever you want to call it, came out. It's going to require millions of dollars worth of funding, and Colorado's broke. So, there's that. So they're going to cut it from something else. We could probably have some guesses where they want to cut that money from, of course. Other things that they mentioned in that review hearing was that they are going to empower the commissioners of this new commission to fine and punish anybody that they deem has violated whatever their self-created regulations are. So when you combine all of that with the fact that they want this shadow commission to be parallel and independent from the current wildlife commissioner, we can see exactly where this is going. There is a thinly veiled threat in there about we need to do this just in case DPW is ever defunded. So it's kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of threat it's embodied in the text of the proposal itself. So we know where their minds are at. We know what they want to do. They want to create this, and then they want to close down CPW and the current Wildlife Commission. Now, if we want to get into why they want to do that, I'm more than happy to. Is they see the Wildlife Commission and the legislature as massive roadblocks to their agenda. So this is basically a temper tantrum on the anti's part here. They are frustrated with getting shot down over and over and over all these years they've tried this. Their one success has been the the wolf reintroduction here a few years ago. That caught everybody flat-footed. Nobody in Colorado. The reason that passed, for the people who don't live in Colorado, not familiar with it, is not because there was a lot of popular support for it, but because our community, the hunting, fishing, trapping, recreational shooting community, was asleep at the wheel on that. And our team was not in a place where we could mobilize, and we could not bring financial resources to bear in time to really put up an adequate fight. And despite our failures on that one, the ballot measure that reintroduced wolves only passed by 2%. So it did just barely squeaked over the finish line. But they've tried other ballot initiatives that have failed. Of course, famously, Proposition 127 last November, we killed that by 10 points, which in politics is a murder.
Yeah, right.
That's a blowout victory. So we're not in the same place as we were before, but I think they're trying to reinvigorate their luck that they had with the wolf bill.
What is the threshold, Barry, in Colorado for these ballot initiatives to pass?
So they have to have the exact number of signatures. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the threshold is basically a majority. It's a little bit more than that, but it's essentially a majority.
Let me rephrase the question. Not legislatively, but for the voters, for people to go to the voting booth, what's the threshold there? Is it a 50+1 of the citizens approve or oppose, or do we have a higher threshold there?
Correct. Majority.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at is we have at CSF have been proactive beginning this session off the heels of Prop 127, and then our recent success in Utah of upping that standard specifically to wildlife management. So we're not looking to carte blanche this across the state, how they function, but we are looking to bring that up to a two-thirds majority in states where this ballot initiatives exist. Maine is another example that we're engaging on this proactively, um, for these very reasons, right? There has to be a higher standard to bring this change about, and because it's so easy with a 50 plus one, it definitely allows these fools to continue to waste time and resources and bring this stuff every time you guys are able to go vote. So if you're really hard pressed for your position, you got to earn it. And hopefully, if we can introduce this in Colorado and get it passed, this would de-incentivize some of these groups from just kind of, willy nilly throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks.
Absolutely, and it is something that is a topic of conversation within our Insight partners. Pretty much every meeting, every conference call, every time we get together to chat, even just on the telephone,
Mhm.
this very subject comes up. And Colorado actually has a history. In the past, the campaign was called Raise the Bar. And what the Raise the Bar campaign successfully did was actually raise the number of signatures required for a ballot initiative. That has helped a little bit, but it's kind of a Cold War situation, where one country, builds a bunch of nuclear missiles and then the other country responds by building 10% more. Well, that's essentially what happens with the Raise the Bar initiative. They raise the number of signatures necessary, but then the antis, they just go out and they raise enough money to hire these outside companies to basically stand on street corners and stand in front of grocery stores and whatever to gather signatures. So that was not the solution that Coloradans hoped it was going to be. So now the discussions are firmly around requiring a 68, 2/3, 60% or 2/3 majority of the voters
Mhm.
to approve a ballot initiative. Um, the strategy as to whether or not we want to go the Utah route and just limit it to wildlife issues or just do it broadly, that is an open question at the moment because
Mm.
Colorado is plagued with ballot initiatives, and I say that completely from a neutral position in the sense that these folks in Colorado are inundated every election with dozens and dozens of ballot initiatives of every kind
Sure.
for every kind of issue, and there's a book. I'm not making this up. There's an actual book that the state of Colorado publishes and mails out to every single registered voter in the state.
Crazy.
Yeah, so that costs millions of dollars, and this book is just filled with all these ballot initiatives so people can read them ahead of time and vote. Because Colorado's a vote by mail state,
Yeah.
so
I hate to come
yeah,
across so selfishly, but I guess, you know, it's likely an easier sell. And I guess in a simpler point, I only care about our issues specifically right now, right? I mean, obviously we care about the issues and Coloradans deserve better. But I think for this initial salvo, if we can get it specific and get that to be acceptable, especially where it's science based, right? This parallel BS would be commission. And as you articulated, this is an obstructionist organization. All they want, and it's your initiative 82 is disingenuously titled the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act. Like, what does that mean? And to the 80% in the middle, that kind of sounds good. Like, yeah, why wouldn't we have that? We want to make sure that biodiversity on the landscape and make sure we're protecting that. Unbeknownst to them, and if they don't read the whole BI, you start getting into preservationist, obstructionist philosophy and things of that nature. Um, so again, this is calling it on the carpet for what it is. I would advise people, especially in Colorado. Barry, as he said, he links to the 19-page response on why this is such a bad idea. And again, coming back to our priority issues, one of our top 10 is where the states that we do have commissions that are independent and help regulation setting, season setting at all. These are important to maintain. Otherwise, we're legislating wildlife management, or you end up with these ambiguous bodies that are advising in the wrong way. And, where we have these commissions and boards that are able to do this, it's vitally important to keep them.
Yeah, agreed. And there's a constitutional issue that we should discuss in a second, but to follow up with what you just said there, for, for the listeners and the viewers out there who don't necessarily, get into this the same nerdy way that we do, this is an example of what you've no doubt heard referred to as ballot box biology. That's what this is all about. Ballot box biology is a bad idea for a multitude of reasons. It's two big ones. One is practical, one's a little bit more philosophical. The practical reason is what you were just touching on there, Fred. That the idea here is that a bunch of uneducated and emotional people in large enough numbers can exercise their will and dictate the policies of the state government to manage wildlife resources over that of people who have gone to college and received a formal education on this stuff, have dedicated their entire lives to the science of wildlife management and conservation. So ballot box biology is stupid just for that reason. I mean, it just falls apart on its face. The more philosophical reason is it's an example of direct democracy, right? And anybody who has even a glancing familiarity with political philosophy knows that democracy, pure democracy, is mob rule.
That's right.
And there's a reason that the ancient Romans created the republic and eschewed the Athenian democracy that had existed 2,500 years ago. There's a reason that our founding fathers took the failures of Athenian democracy and also, frankly, the failures of the Roman Republic and then created our federal constitutional republic,
That's
which
right.
is distinctly different from all of that because our system, and this gets right down to the heart of what the commission and the legislatures are all about. The American system is intended to be deliberative. It is intended to be slow. Frankly, it's intended to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And we all hate it. It frustrates everybody. It makes no difference what your political affiliation or opinions are. We all hate it. But that's the point. It's supposed to be a pain in the butt. It's supposed to be slow because it gives time for smart people to craft good policies and then build consensus around those policies and then vote to enact those things. So is this whole ballot box biology thing, guys. If you're not following this stuff, it's a growing problem, especially out here in the West, where pretty much every state has a ballot initiative. A ballot initiative process. But some of the Western states, like Colorado, for example, will make it super easy. In most states that have this, there are some roadblocks. There's a pretty high bar. It's not easy to do. Even California is harder to do this than Colorado, which is why we're seeing this stuff crop up. But if these things are successful in places like Colorado where it's easy, we're going to start seeing them in places where it's harder. So this is an issue that everybody in our community really needs to tune into and pay attention to. I don't care if you're in Maine or in Florida, you need to pay attention to what's going on in Colorado.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to leave it there, Barry. Great breakdown of what's going on. People make sure they're following this just like you did with 127 because the ripple effect is nationwide, to be sure. Because if you can't, and I'm saying this from experience here in the Northeast, especially that if they can't or there is no process for a ballot initiative process, they will certainly go to the legislature or the governor's office and lobby for air finger quote equal representation or try to change the current statutes on who is eligible to be seated on a board or commission, right? So that's the other workaround in the states where these don't exist. So this is important. So you want to pay attention and rally to the cause. Barry, we appreciate it. Thank you for your reporting, and we look forward to hopefully positive updates on this coming in the future.
Yes, from your lips to God's ears, brother. Thank you for having me on.
All right, you bet. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye.
All right, thank you to Barry for adjusting there with the little technical snafu as well. I think we got it, and stay engaged on this stuff. Again, like we said, if it's not affecting you directly right now, certainly it has the potential to bring about some efforts. All right, let's keep rolling on with the show. This from Connor Barker: parity on the horizon for North Carolina's recreational flounder anglers. Southern flounder are among the most popular targeted species of saltwater fish in North Carolina and along most of the southern Atlantic. Striking a balance between recreational and commercial anglers is a critical piece to conserving this commonly targeted species and ensuring access for the folks in North Carolina's recreational fishing. The North Carolina Southern Flounder Fishery Management Plan Amendment 3 establishes that commercial and recreational southern flounder allocations be as follows: 2023, 2024, a 70-30, and 2025, a 60-40 split, and going forward in the next year, 2026, a 50-50, respectively, between commercial and recreational. The North Carolina Southern Flounder Fishery Management Plan Amendment 4 would move the 50-50 commercial to recreational southern flounder allocation originally scheduled for 26 up to 2025. In 2024, the recreational southern flounder season was closed in North Carolina after estimates indicate that the 2023 recreational harvest exceeded the allowed quota. CSF submitted written testimony to North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries supporting the adoption of Amendment 4 before their May 21st meeting. Following last year's disappointment of there being no recreational flounder season in North Carolina, recreational anglers will be glad to hear that parity is on the horizon for one of the state's most popular saltwater species. Following the adoption of Amendment 4 to the North Carolina Southern Flounder Fisheries Management Plan, recreational fishing access was prioritized last week in the Division of Marine Fisheries Commission meeting. A strong case can be made to protect access to North Carolina's recreational marine fisheries by just following the money alone, not to mention the many other benefits that these time honored traditions offer to sportsmen and women. According to a report from the American Sport Fishing Association, North Carolina's recreational saltwater fishing alone generates more than $1.7 billion of economic impact. Additionally, anglers in the Old North State generate over $40 million in funding for conservation through the American System Conservation Funding, the user pay public benefit structure. The 2024 Southern Flounder recreational season closure opened the eyes of anglers and fisheries managers in North Carolina and around the nation. Efforts laid out in the Amendment 3 to bring parity between commercial and recreational southern flounder fisheries was a step in the right direction, but may not have come soon enough. It is reasonable to believe that the 50-50 allocation shift would have been implemented in 24 as originally proposed, rather than be postponed to 2026. The closure recreational flounder season in 2024 may have been avoided altogether. Following last week's adoption of Amendment 4 by the Division of Marine Fisheries Commission, the 50-50 commercial to recreational allocation shift scheduled for 2026 will now be moved up now to 2025. Following the loss of last year's recreational flounder season, this expedited shift in southern flounder allocation is necessary to avoid future loss of access and near certain negative economic impacts. CSF commends the Commission for taking action to protect one of North Carolina's most popular saltwater species and is hopeful for the 2025 recreational southern flounder season. Heading to West Virginia, this from Kaylee Lear, a look back at what was the 2025 legislative session. West Virginia's legislative session was a productive one, with Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation engaging early and often on many issues of concern for West Virginia's sporting community. During the legislative session, policies that are formed in the state's capitals impact what we do in the water and the field. Fortunately for sportsmen and women of West Virginia, the session was a success. Legislators in the Mountain State kept sportsmen and women in mind, as well as conservation, when casting their votes. Some examples. West Virginia legislature convened on February 12th of this year and adjourned April 12th of this year. House Bill 3342, Firearms Industry Non-Discrimination Act, the FIND Act, was signed by Governor Patrick Morrisey, protecting businesses from discrimination solely because they engage in lawful commerce, firearms, and ammunition. Senate Resolution 6, commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Sportfish Restoration Program, was introduced by West Virginia Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus co-chair Senator Bill Hamilton and was adopted early in February. The CSF submitted written testimony for Senate Bill 152 and 153, as their passage would have provided free hunting and fishing and trapping licenses to certain individuals. While well intended, these bills would have created a financial burden on the DNR there in West Virginia. I think those of you who follow the show know how we feel about that. As previously mentioned, state level legislation has a huge impact on sportsmen and women. Public access, hunting rules and regulations, license fees, protect funding, and so on. Examples of legislative involvement in hunting, fishing, recreational shooting, and trapping. Fortunately, the West Virginia Department of Natural Resources has fairly positive working rapport with the legislature. Again, going back to 152 and 153, um, where those would have created those free licenses and coming up with that negative revenue generation. While the legislative like this is well intended, as we've said, the negative fiscal impacts. CSF submitted written testimony expressing the concern, and the bills were not taken up. Additionally, highlighting here the FIND Act that was signed into law on the 25th, protecting those folks from their lawful commerce. And then we're celebrating the recognition of the 75th anniversary of the Sportfish Restoration, Dingell-Johnson Act that we've talked about quite a bit here in 2025 on this show, and hearing from Chris Horton and why that's important. So, some positive things happening in West Virginia. We thank Kaylee for her reporting there. Wrapping it up, conservation funding, constitution amendments, and school curriculum. Iowa's legislative session recap from Jake Gould. The Iowa legislative session saw its fair share of sportsmen and women related bills introduced this year. CSF was active in engaging on legislation that had negative impacts on conservation funding, enshrining the right to hunt and fish, and establishing a curriculum for firearms hunting and wildlife in school. Highlights here, Iowa House Joint Resolution 7 and Senate Joint Resolution 7 were introduced to enshrine the right to hunt and fish and trap in Iowa's state constitution. Senate Resolution 6 was introduced to repeal the Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund. House File 536 would have created a firearm, hunting, and wildlife curriculum for students in 6th through 8th grades. House File 21 would have allowed veterans to fish without requiring purchasing a fishing license. Recently, Iowa legislative session came to an end. While many of these bills did not pass this session, they are eligible to be carried over in the 2026 legislative session. CSF actively engaged in each of these bills as they made their way through the process there in Iowa. Iowa House and Senate Joint Resolution 7 would have enshrined the right to hunt and fish and trap in Iowa's Constitution, safeguarding the future of Iowa's outdoor heritage. Naturally, CSF submitted testimony in favor of the resolution to the House Natural Resources Committee, where they voted in support of the resolution. Unfortunately, did not pass this session, but positive momentum was built, gaining support for the resolutions, which will be eligible for carryover next session. That is good. These things don't get done all at once. I think, Florida, even though it came about pretty quick to the public's eyes, that was certainly a multi-year process and conversation that took about. So we got to start somewhere with them, and that's certainly a positive step there in Iowa. Senate Joint Resolution 6 was also introduced, which aimed to repeal Natural Resources and Outdoor Recreational Trust Fund, an account established by voter approval in 2010 and designed to be funded a conservation sales tax that remains a key priority for many within the sport and conservation community. CSF submitted written testimony in opposition of Resolution 6, highlighting the importance of the trust fund once it is funded, since the Iowa DNR relies on the American System of Conservation funding for their conservation efforts. Joint Resolution 6 did not pass, but like the other resolutions, is available and eligible for carryover for next session. House Bill 536, a CSF priority bill, was introduced to create a firearm hunting and wildlife curriculum that can be implemented in school districts as an elective for students enrolled in 6th to 8th grades. CSF shared our support with the Iowa Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus co-chairs, and the bill will be carried over into the next session. Finally, CSF also engaged in House File 21, offering amendments to include language for reimbursement for free and discounted licenses. Uh, House File 21 would allow veterans to fish without purchasing a fishing license or needing any proof of a fishing license. While CSF appreciates the opportunity to show support, there are considerations associated with waiving these license requirements that we just discussed in West Virginia. No need to be repetitive. CSF out. CSF is committed to working with legislators across the country, including the Hawkeye State, to promote policies that benefit hunters, anglers, recreational shooters, and trappers, and looks forward to continuing to engage on some of these bills next year. Thank you, Jake, for your reporting. That's it. That's the show. I told you it was a short one. We were able to go a little bit longer with Barry um, and get more of an explanation. Colorado continues to defy reasonable logic and what's going on out there. You folks got to get more engaged and beyond the sporting community. There's just not enough of us. I think the efforts that we saw last November and the PR campaign from the state agency, from the stakeholders, from CSF to educate the public on how wildlife and habitats are managed in that state is vitally important. That same argument should carry over to this one that Barry highlighted, recognizing that let the pros do their job, right? Um, it's unnecessary to have people come in there just throwing lobbing bombs just to blow the whole process up. Iowa, got to get that right. The hunt and fish. Call your legislators. Get on it. Have that opportunity to update your state constitution. 24 states out of 50. We can do better. We should be doing better. We got to at least get to 25. We have a few more states where that opportunity exists, especially going into next session. So hopefully we have better news in 2026 with all this. And I understand there's some in this both federal and state levels, um, with new administrations, with a lot of budgetary considerations at the beginning of this session that took a lot of oxygen out of a lot of state capitals as well as down on the Hill. So now that some of that is behind us, governors got their budgets and are signing those. Now we can start doing the people's work and getting some of this good stuff in the hands of these governors to sign good legislation and obviously stopping the bad. All right, we'll put a bow on it there. Thanks as always for tuning in, for bringing us along and trusting CSF for the most accurate and dependable reporting. I will get on a little soapbox rant. I'll keep it quick. You know, socially, you guys see it out there. There's a lot of folks out there that are quick to be the first ones out on on topics in our community, some very controversial, and a lot of clickbait out there. A lot of people just looking for those views, those social media interactions, so they can spin it that they're leading the way, and whatever those metrics look like for them, that they can puff their chest a little bit. But what matters is the accurate reporting. So sometimes you won't see CSF come out in the early hours on a controversial piece of legislation or topic or initiative. And we are doing our due diligence. We're not always loud or the loudest in the room, but we have proven results for over 35 years. That track record is there. So all that to say, the folks that are first out the gate in the first 24, 48 hours, or even, sometimes multiple days to a week or more, go ahead and pump your own tires, beat your drum. This session, in the last 4 or 5 months, I have personally seen air finger quote notables having to do mea culpas or just ignoring it altogether and whitewashing what they did in the past, literally deleting posts, trying not to take responsibility for egregious reporting. So look, again, I told you soapbox rant, but I'm damn proud of what we do here. Our team of professionals, the foundation that was laid starting in 1989, and then our president and CEO Jeff Crane really just pedal down, pedal to the metal, with our, vice president of policy and Brent Miller, you know, really championing our state level initiatives, and working with our state legislative sportsmen's caucuses and building those up so that they're in all 50 states to, our pros on the Hill and Chris Horton, Taylor Schmitz, and John Colclasure. Definitely name dropping these folks because they've just done so much and they just do a damn good job, and they make sure they are judicious. We are at the state level that work in the state program team are very judicious and specific to our detail-oriented reporting, that I would say stands head and shoulders above everybody. And yeah, that's me thumping my chest. And I think it's warranted. And we're gonna leave it at that. So you could trust us. We are your trusted source. And as always, we are your inside connection to outdoor legislation. Tomorrow, podcast feature drop in. We welcome back Joe Bartozzi, CEO and president of the National Shooting Sports Foundation, NSSF. We are highlighting Lock It Up Week, Child Safety Month coming up here, initiative that is near and dear and passionate to Joe Bartozzi. Great conversation that you definitely want to tune in as far as gun safety storage, some ideas that you may not be aware of, resources that are available to you as a new firearm first time owner, or even a seasoned one, that, things are shifting in your life, family dynamics that you want to pay attention to. So a real important show. And we thank Joe for his time. So tune in tomorrow. And then next week, obviously, we bring you more news every Wednesday as we do. So thanks as always. We will see you next week. I'll see you tomorrow on the feature. Thanks so much. See ya. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.